Today, I'll be showing you the first 20 things that you need to do to get the most out of your Switch 2. Now, these tips and tricks as well as settings will help you unlock new features, improve performance and battery life, and make your Switch 2 last longer. Alright, so starting off strong, let's take a look at a setting that's going to let you load up your games faster. So to do this, we're first going to jump into System Settings here along the bottom of the screen. And then we're going to scroll down to where we find User. And then here you want to turn on Skip Selection Screen. Now this way, whenever you launch a game, you won't be asked to first select which profile you want to launch that from. This is especially great if you just have one account set up like I do here. And next, let's take a look at battery life, more specifically showing you more accurate battery life on your Switch. So to do this, back in the settings menu, we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom to where we find System right here, and then scroll to where we find Console Battery Percentage. You're going to want to make sure that that is turned on. And now, as you can see, we will see the battery percentage along with the battery indicator to give you a better idea of how much battery is left on your Switch. Now, on the subject of battery, I want to show you a really important setting to turn on that is going to enable you to have your battery and by extension your Switch last much longer. So first, let me show you where to find this. We're going to go back into System Settings and then back into System. And then in here, we are going to turn on a setting that says here, stop charging at around 90%. Now, this setting here is very important, as what this is going to do is it's essentially going to limit your Switch from charging all the way up to 100%. Now, when your Switch, or any tech for that matter, is charged at 100%, there's a significant strain on the battery in terms of the voltage, and this is significantly lessened when the maximum capacity is lowered to something like 90 or even say 80%. So capping your battery capacity at 90%, so stopping that charge once it reaches 90%, is going to help your battery last longer. It's going to decrease your battery wear and ultimately improve your battery health, making your Switch as a whole last longer. So definitely recommend you turn this on. Now, the one exception I will say is if say you have a travel day coming up, then I would recommend turning this off temporarily just to get your full battery capacity for that day or for that short period. But if you're just generally using your Switch at home, definitely recommend you turn this 90% limit on to help your battery last longer. On the subject of charging, did you know that on the Switch 2 we now get two USB-C ports, one on the top as well as on the bottom, and both of these ports can be used to charge your Switch. And my recommendation is if say you are laying down in bed or say on your sofa getting comfortable playing your Switch 2, I recommend charging your Switch from the top port as opposed from the bottom port, as this way the cable won't be sticking out of the Switch from the bottom and then having pressure from say as you rest your Switch down. This way, when the cable is wired from above, there will be much more freedom for that cable to move, and there won't be as much pressure on the endpoint of the connector, helping your cable and by extension the port last longer too. And fun fact, did you know that your Switch 2 can actually double as a giant and also expensive battery bank? So let's say you are traveling and your phone is running low, you can charge your phone right from your Switch. As you can see here, it is currently charging, and this is great if you need some emergency power for your journey. Good to know that your Switch has that ability built in. And now I want to talk about the display, more specifically a very important tip that I recommend you do from day one, and that is to get a good screen protector for your Switch 2. Now, why is this? Well, the display on the Switch 2, first of all, is a very big upgrade when compared to the original Switch, of course, excluding the OLED model. But the display, while it technically is made of glass, it does have a thin layer of plastic on the outermost layer of the display. Now, Nintendo does this primarily for a safety reason, so this way, if your screen ever does crack, it won't shatter into 100 pieces and potentially get into your fingers or anything like that. However, what that does also mean is that outer layer of plastic is very susceptible to scratching, and this means it's going to be very easy to scratch your Switch's screen. So to avoid getting scratches on your Switch 2's display that you can't remove, I recommend on day one getting a good screen protector. Now, there are many out there. However, this right here is the one that I've used on my Switch. I'll also leave this link down below. This here is a tempered glass screen protector, and the reason I like this particular one is because it comes with everything you need included, and importantly, as you can see here, it has an installation frame. So it makes it super easy to apply. All you do is rest this over the Switch, and then you know that your screen protector will be perfectly aligned. You can see I've got mine on my Switch right now, and let me just give you a quick view here of how clean that install is. If my camera is willing to cooperate, there it is. So you can see it very perfectly sits over your Switch 2's display, and this here is going to help your Switch screen stay protected and last longer, and I think look better because you have that nice glass screen protector. So if, say, this does receive a scratch, you can simply pull it off and then apply a new one. And again, the importance of doing this on day one is that on day one, of course, your Switch 2 will not have any scratches. So to keep it that way, I recommend you install one right away. Another product I highly recommend you get for your Switch 2 on day one is a good case. Now, this is something where there are many good options out there. However, this time I decided to go with Nintendo's first party offering, and this here is their case for the Switch 2. And I found this to be a really good option, primarily because it is a hard shell case, and that I think is most important when it comes to finding a Switch for your case for your Switch 2, as you want to make sure it protects from impacts like, say, knocks on your bag or wherever you may store. So this is a very simple hard shell case. You get the nice Nintendo logo on the top there. You get these colorful zippers, nice touch, I think, to match the Joy-Cons. And then inside here, inside the zip, I can show you, we do have an additional pocket here for your game cartridges, so you can store a lot of your cards inside. You see you have little dividers there along the top, and this case does actually come with a set of screen protectors. It actually comes with two plastic screen protectors. Now, it's nice to have these included, especially for the price of the case. I personally haven't used these for two reasons. One is they are quite difficult to install because you don't get that installation frame, and two is that, well, they are plastic. So just like the Switch screen, it's going to be much easier to scratch these, whereas the glass one that is on my Switch right now will be much more durable. So I wouldn't get this case for the screen protector. It's still nice to have, though, as like a backup, but really get it for the case, primarily because, like I said, it's a hard shell. I like how thin it is as well. Nice, good quality zipper. You guys can hear that. That's a solid zipper, and overall, I think very functional for what it is. So I'll leave this link down below as well, but like I said, there's many third-party options, but the most important thing really, like I said, is to just have a case. This way your Switch is protected because, of course, well, the Switch 2 is definitely more expensive now. And secondly, I found that the Switch 2, while the build quality is impressive, it is, of course, very much plastic, and you can feel her on the back. It's not the thickest plastic in the world, so you want to make sure that it is protected from impact on those travel days, which is, of course, where the Switch 2 will really shine. All right, now let's go back to the Switch here, and there's a really neat tip and trick that I want to show you regarding the Joy-Con. So let's say you are playing your Switch with the Joy-Cons detached, as I have right here, but you lose one or both of your Joy-Cons, say in the sofa or in another room or wherever they may be. Well, there is a really useful way to find your lost Joy-Cons, and to do this over on the Switch using the touchscreen, we're going to tap on the controller icon here on the home screen, and then we're going to tap into search for controllers. And then here you can tap either controller, and what that's going to do is it's going to vibrate the controller, as you guys can hear. However, if, say, you found your controller and you lost your controller and you still can't find it, you can also tap and hold. And as you can see, that will also then get the controller to make an audible noise, making it much easier to find. So this is something that I really recommend using, as if you lose your controllers, this here is going to be very useful. And now, one more useful tip I want to show you regarding the Joy-Cons is how to check the battery life of your Joy-Con, because when they are disconnected, you're essentially running three separate batteries, right? Your left Joy-Con, right Joy-Con, and the one in your Switch. And the battery indicator that you see here will only show the battery life of your Switch. If you want to know the battery life of your controllers, what you want to do is on the home screen, go back to that controller menu, and as you can see right here in the bottom left, you get little battery indicators to give you an idea for the battery life of each of your Joy-Cons. Okay, so I've really been enjoying playing Cyberpunk here over on the Switch, but have found that after some time it can get a little bit uncomfortable to hold, and there's actually a really unique fix to this. Now, of course, you can buy third-party accessories like grips and things like this. I don't consider that essential. What I instead have found is, if you take a look at the kickstand here on the back of the Switch, is if you slightly remove this, so slightly protrude it, let's say at a 45-degree or so angle, you can actually rest the Switch on top of your ring fingers, and that takes away some of the weight from your palms, and that actually makes it quite comfortable to play. In fact, if you want to have it a little lower, you can even put it above your pinky here. So as you can see, I'm playing it like this, where a lot of the weight will fall on that pinky finger, and this distributes the weight more across my hands, and I actually found this to be a more comfortable comfortable way to hold the Switch and then play longer term if, say, I am going for a longer playing session. So a very interesting way to have a built-in little grip. I know it might look a little bit strange at first, but trust me, try it, and I think you may be pleasantly surprised as to how comfortable this one can be. Now, while we're here in Cyberpunk, I'd love to show you a really cool feature of the Switch 2 specifically, and that is the ability to actually have a built-in mouse to either of your Joy-Cons. You can see if we take a look at the Joy-Cons here, you get this little laser indicator in both sides, and that means either of these can be used as a mouse. Now, in the box of your Switch 2, you'll receive 2 of these accessories. This right here is a simple magnetic attachment. You'll have one for each Joy-Con, and let me show you how to briefly attach this, because you're gonna need this to activate the mouse mode. And you want to slide this in from bottom to top. So first along the bottom, and then right like that, snap it into place. And now we are ready to use mouse mode on your Switch 2. Now, depending on the game you're playing, you may need to activate a setting to first enable this. So, that was unintentional. Let me show you what I mean here. So over in Cyberpunk, we're going to jump into settings, and then we're going to go into controls, and then go into mouse cursor, and you want to make sure that that setting there is enabled. Now, check this out. If I go ahead and move my Switch out the way, take my controller, and place it face down on my desk, look at that. I am now fully controlling my character using a mouse. And of course, the left Joy-Con here works as normal. And this here is super great, especially for games like this, which obviously involve a lot of aiming. It's much easier to get a more accurate shot from here and very quickly change your perspective, essentially using it like a mouse. And then the rear triggers are going to be basically the back buttons here. So to fire, I will touch the left trigger, and throw a grenade, I can shoot with the right, or use the right trigger as well. So this is a really useful functionality. Again, you're probably not going to want to use this on your lap, but if you are playing, say, on a desk, and you got your Switch set up, say, on the kickstand, or for example, if you have it hooked up to a television or a monitor, this here can be a really great way to get essentially a desktop like feel right from your Switch. So not all games take advantage of this, but many of them do, and even third-party games like, for example, Cyberpunk, I think is a fantastic example of this functionality here right on the Switch 2. And now, to make the mouse experience even better on your Switch 2, there's a couple settings that I'd love to show you. So we're going to remain in mouse mode here, and check this out. We get this little cursor here, just like, say, on a computer. And what we're going to do is we are going to jump into system settings. There we go. So use the left trigger here. That's going to be your A button. And then from here, we are going to go down to where we find controller and accessories. And then in here, we're going to scroll down to where we found mouse sensitivity. And then in here, we can go ahead and change that to what we like. So this is going to, of course, determine how fast your mouse will move. I prefer to have it on fast. I think that's best, especially if you are on a smaller surface. But in general, you can go ahead and change this to whatever you like. Next, I want to show you one of my favorite features of the Switch, not just the Switch 2, but also on previous Switches, and that is the ability to essentially play many games in split screen or multiplayer mode using just one Switch and the built-in Joy-Cons. And I think the new Mario Kart World is an excellent example of that. So I just want to show you how to set up a game. So first of all, you want to load up the game, and as you can see here in Mario Kart, we're going to jump over to multiplayer, then tap onto 2 players, and then we will be prompted to detach both of our controllers to change the grip order. So you want to tap onto the shoulder buttons here on each controller. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and continue. And now, as you can see, we go ahead and we can set up this game and run it with 2 players right on one Switch. Now, this is, of course, great if you are on the road, if you're on a flight, whatever it may be, and you have just one Switch with you. This is great to play with a friend, with a sibling, significant other, whatever it may be. Let me quickly pull up a race here to show you what this split screen mode will look like. And as you can see, we're now doing a very hectic race here with 2 people in one. So I'm doing my best here to control both screens. But as you can see, this is a great way to set up and play any game or many games on your Switch in dual player mode right on your existing Switch without needing any extra controllers or anything like that. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that the first Joy-Con controller that you detach, that will be player 1. And now back to the home screen. There's a couple things I want to show you over on the settings page, and the first here is a great setting that's going to help you secure your Switch. So to find this, we're going to go into System Settings, tap onto System, and then here we're going to go into Console Lock and then turn this on. We're going to tap on OK, and then from here you're going to be prompted to set up a 4 to 8 digit PIN. Now this is a great way to protect your personal data if ever, let's say you're traveling a lot and you want to make sure that if your Switch is ever lost or stolen, that your data is safe. So to set a digital pin, kind of like essentially, or a lock pin, kind of like then to unlock your phone, is a great way to stop someone from just entering the console and going through your data. So if you want to add that additional layer of protection and security, this is where you find that in the Switch. Next, I want to show you a really useful tip to quickly access the settings menu from while you're playing a game. So instead of having to press the home button and then going into your settings menu, you can actually also press and hold the home button, and that's going to bring up a quick settings menu here on the right of your display to quickly change things like your brightness, your volume, or even connect to Bluetooth devices. But more on that in a sec. Okay, so if you're like me and you're coming to the Switch 2 from having previously played the Xbox Series X, there's a little bit of an adjustment when it comes to the A and B buttons. You see, on the Switch, the A button is going to be your go button, and your B button is going to be your back button, whereas on the Xbox, and I believe also on the PlayStation 5, those are inverted. So I often found myself pressing the wrong button, and I'm going back when I want to go forward, and there's actually a way to swap the A and B buttons on the Switch to make it just like your Xbox or say your PS5. And to change the setting, we're going to go into the settings menu here and then scroll down to where we find controllers and accessories, and then scroll once more to where we find swap A and B. And then right here, we can go ahead and activate the swap. Now, one little thing I will say is while this works flawlessly and your A and B button will match that of your Xbox or PlayStation, which is great, things like your menus within games will still reflect the old A-B layouts. So if you're reading the screen, you will see, A to go forward, but it will actually be then A to go back. So you have to kind of mentally remember that. But otherwise, this here I think is really useful if you are coming from a console like myself over to the Switch. And I want to talk about pairing a Bluetooth device like, for example, Apple AirPods. This is really essential if, say, you are playing, let's say, late at night and you don't want to disrupt your significant other, or if you're on a plane and you want to block out the engine noise and still hear what it is you are playing. It is great to be able to connect a Bluetooth device like your AirPods. So let me show you how to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into System Settings here, and then we're going to scroll to where we find Bluetooth Audio, and then here we can go ahead and see, first of all, our saved devices. That's my AirPods 4 here, and then we can go ahead and add a device, and it's going to be scanning for your device. So you want to make sure that your AirPods or whatever it is you're using is in pairing mode. On the AirPods, you want to leave the case open, I believe, on the 4s, and then on the Pro 2s, there's going to be a little button here on the back to press and hold, and then it should show up here in this list. From there, you can then simply connect, and now you will have AirPods, or rather a Bluetooth device, connected to your Switch. And then if we go into our settings, we can tap on it here to connect, and then again, even in the quick settings menu that we just looked at, you can also change your audio source from there. Now, what is also cool is that you can actually connect not just to headphones, but technically any Bluetooth speaker. So even things like maybe a soundbar setup that you have at home or whatever it may be, technically speaking, you can connect to that too if you like. And now I want to talk about taking screenshots and also screen recording. So to take a screenshot, you want to press this little button here in the bottom left. So if I take that, as you can see, a capture has been taken. And what is also cool is I can also press and hold this button here, and now it's going to be taking a up to 30-second little screen recording right of my gameplay or whatever it is that I am doing. And to show you where these are saved, we're going to go over to the home page here, tap into our gallery. That's that blue icon right down there. And here, as you can see, we have all the screenshots, including that little video that we just recorded, right, saved on the Switch. And then from here, of course, it's going to be very easy to share this with family, friends, whatever it may be. And it's great to kind of keep track of screenshots as you go. All right, this next hidden feature is really useful, especially in a detail-rich game like Cyberpunk, where often you're looking in the distance and you just can't quite see what you're looking at, so you have to move closer. Well, there is a way to actually enable a hidden zoom feature that you can enable within any game, but there's a setting first that we need to activate. So to do this, we are going to jump into Settings here, and then we're going to go to Accessibility right here. And then in here, we are going to scroll down to where we find Zoom, and we're going to make sure that that is turned on. Now, a double press of the home button, as you can see, is going to zoom in on the display. And we can even change the field of view here with the left Joy-Con, and then using the X and Y button, we can zoom in or out even further, and then simply double press once again to go back. And as you can see, this also works in any game. So like here in Cyberpunk, I can double tap that button. As you can see, I am now zoomed in, and I can then zoom in or zoom out if I like, without moving my character or anything like that. And to activate it, just simply double press and then go back. I find myself quite often using this feature. It's actually an accessibility feature, but I think it's something that everyone can benefit from, so something I definitely recommend. Now, I want to take a look at themes. Now, themes on the Switch 2 are a bit underwhelming in a sense that you just get two. You get light mode, that's what you're seeing now, and then we also get dark mode. So let me show you how to switch these. So over in settings, we are going to scroll down to where we find themes, and here is the list of two. We get black, basically black and white, and I think for most scenarios, I think the black one here is going to be nicer. It will save you a little bit of battery, and also just I think it's nicer to look at, especially late at night. It's not as bright. Of course, for the video, white is going to be easier to read, but generally speaking, I like switching it over to black. Now, this next one here is underrated, but I think quite useful. Did you know that when you press the power button over on the top of your Switch, it doesn't actually turn off? Instead, what it does is it goes to sleep. So you just wake it up again, and there we go. We've unlocked it. If you actually want to turn off your Switch, let's say you're not going to be using it for a little while and you want to conserve battery, you have to press and hold this button. And then we get this secondary menu. And in here, we're going to go into power options, and then we have power off, and that is how you actually turn off your Switch. Interesting that Nintendo made that quite difficult to do. It was also on the Switch 1. There's really a couple of steps involved, but that is how you turn off your Switch. And then, of course, to turn it back on, you just want to press and hold that power button here on the top. And then, as you can see, we are going to be rebooting the Switch 2. And well, there you have it. There are the first 20 things that I recommend you do to get the most out of your Switch 2. Let me know if you have any questions at all, and as always, I will leave the purchase links down in the description to the Switch as well as the accessories that we looked at today. And if you haven't seen it yet, I've done similar first things to do videos for the iPhone as well as Galaxy phones too, which I'll leave linked on screen right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.